Hello friends, welcome back to another daytime edition of Kirby Russia, as you can see from the lighting. I found two really interesting pieces of news that I'd like to discuss that I think are very important for all of you Russia enthusiasts and Russia followers. Because again, if you're not that interested in information about Russia, why are you on this channel? Because that's all I talk about. Anyways, we have here, this should be something that I think certain parts of the United States would love to hear. Support for the country's oldest liberal party falls to 0%. Yes, liberals in Russia have officially and completely been defeated. Yes, if we read this together, let me get this appropriately on my screen here. Yabloko, which means apple, the Russian Liberal Party, founded in 1993 by economist Grigory Yavlinsky, no longer has any support in Russian society, according to a recent public opinion poll. So, yes. Let's see. If they mention that the party in 1993, Yabloko Apple, won 27 seats in the 450-member state Duma with 8% of the national vote. And then 1996, they did even better, getting 45 seats. Now that's, so who cares, Tim? Why is this important? That's maybe some sort of interesting historical note that there used to be a successful liberal party in Russia. But why should anyone care about this? Well, I can actually tell you why. Because the Russian type of liberal is very similar to our more, let's just call them extreme liberal friends that we see in Washington. That, it kind of goes back to the whole thing that Dugin was trying to explain to Carlson. That when you have sort of a liberal mentality, you hate the idea of being forced into any group. And so generally people who are really liberal have this hatred towards the society that they're born into. So Russian liberals hate Russia. American liberals hate America. Although they kind of also hate the rest of the world even more. But anyways, British liberals hate Britain, and so on and so forth. This is very stable because they see this group of people that they were born into as being some sort of repressive force. So anyways, Russian liberals tended to, especially in the 90s, be very vocal about their hatred towards their own society and how they see themselves as clearly superior to it. Now, for many years, when I first started living in Russia in the mid-2000s, I would sort of see that the Russian liberals were very open about this. Whereas kind of like the Democrat type of liberals in America, they didn't mention this. Now, somewhere in the mid-2010s, that's when the mask came off in America. That is when our good old liberal friends are kind of like AOC-like people, your sort of mainstream CNN host types. They really took the masks off, and they came out and they despise the American masks. Probably masses, I mean. They really, maybe it was probably in connection with the whole Trump election thing. Maybe about that time, is it sort of forced them to, or maybe not forced them. Well, they took the opportunity to really expose themselves, that they had exactly the same destructive mentality as in the liberals in Russia. And the liberals in Russia, I mean, there was at one time, you could see that 45 people in the Russian Congress, 45 seats, that would be willing to vote for anything to break up Russia, make it more submissive to the West, because maybe the other difference is that, well, maybe it is the same, is that liberals in Russia were always sure that the only solution to making Russia a better place to live in was complete and total submission to the West. And for maybe American liberals, that's not quite the same, but their submission is to some sort of more general vague globalism. So anyways, for those of you who are let's just say of the right-wing variety from an American or British perspective, you should treat this as some sort of a moment of hope, because in Russia, you could say in Russia now, at least in a political sense, there are no liberals. They've lost. They've been defeated. So what does that mean for the United States, Britain, Australia, and so on? Would this be achievable in these countries where, let's just say, I don't know, who knows, the Liberal Party in England or the Democrats, could they ever be reduced to 0% popularity? I guess maybe it's unfair to compare because Russians tend to be very naturally conservative on their own. So if you think about it, liberals in Russia never exceeded 10% of the population, even at the height of the popularity of being liberal. But still, it's sort of a mission for the West. It's something that I think many people might be jealous of. Now, for those of you who might be saying, but Tim, hold on. What about the LDPR? They have plenty of seats in Parliament, and the L in LDPR stands for liberal. I would recommend you listen to anything their great leader, who is unfortunately no longer with us, Vladimir Zhirinovsky, has said over the last 20 years, or their current current candidate they had for president in the last election, who I don't know if he's the party leader or if he was just the presidential candidate. But anyways, the face of the party, Slutsky. Take a listen to what he has to say. It doesn't sound very liberal. Some people say that the actual LDPR, the purpose of it was when liberalism was cool, is that near the end of the USSR, they were going to pump up this party to kind of be like, create a sort of like fake two-party system, like a fake left-right dynamic, when the left would really never, or left in a, let's just say, more social sense, not an economic sense, would kind of be out there and you'd be able to vote for them, but ultimately nothing would change. It would just create a two-party system. So some people think that the LDPR is actually a remnant of that fake two-party system. So in some ways, they can be a little bit libertarian, like they're sort of pro-gun, they're pro-personal freedom, but a responsible personal freedom that serves the state, and they are not liberal in the sense of like, you know, having the freedom to chop off your genitals. They are not on the side of that. So anyways, I would say that they're more of a, I don't know, mainstream Russian views, but how about some guns and less bureaucracy? So anyways, yeah, they're really not that liberal, and that L that they're stuck with is just some sort of legacy of what was cool in the late 80s. So yeah, interesting. So all you Americans out there, can you defeat the liberals the way the Russians did? Let's see if you, let's give it a try. Anyways, another piece of news that I'll just talk about a little bit is that the EU's state's president pledges to bring Russia to its knees. Oh my gosh, let me maximize this on my screen here. Alarkadis urges the West to keep up pressure on ordinary Russian citizens to force political change in Moscow. And isn't that just classic? Isn't that just classic coming from the type of people who always talk about human rights and the freedom of the individual and that? So it's amazing that he literally, you know, is just coming out to say, in a direct sense, that, well, if we can't defeat Russia, let's just attack the normies. Amazing. What a moral gent. So anyways, Estonian President Alarkares, sorry, I love a good Estonian Finnish accent, claimed that meaningful discussions on ending the Ukraine conflict can only take place when Moscow is totally subdued. Or, excuse me, totally subdued. The head of the state also called on Western nations to attempt to force political change in Russia. So, yes, this tiny country is trying to threaten to make massive changes within Russia. I think actually recently Estonia kind of backed off a little bit on their anti-Russian language repression and allowed more schools to actually teach Russian. So that's kind of one of these interesting things about what people say outwardly, but when they do what they do inwardly. So yes, Russia can change quickly enough to respond to our Western understanding of democracy. Yeah, sure. Your Western understanding of democracy. But anyways, remember, friends, that at this point in the war, and why do I bring this up? Because we can't remember that there is a certain fantastic political regime that is destroying its own population and has basically it destroyed its own population. Yeah, we'll put it that way. Destroyed itself. Committed suicide on Russian bayonets. We don't have to mention who that is. We all know who said that. We have this regime there, and it seems like everyone wants to just jump in the same hole that they're in. Unfortunately, I remember this one video from the war where a guy jumps off an APC and he jumps right onto a landmine, leg gone, right? And that's, I think, at least verbally, because again, who knows what the actions are, but at least verbally, that's what a lot of these EU politicians, especially the Baltic states, are trying to do. Because the Russians, by the magical regime, you know, the magical regime has made a lot of kill lists of people. And if we take into account Daria Dugina or the Tatarsky And actually, I would even say to an extent, Manuel Ochsenreiter had his life destroyed by these people, and various others, people who are non-combatants, who are sort of journalists or different figures, and all the people in Belgorod who have been killed by various rocket attacks, so on and so forth. If you look at it that way, Russia has been put on all these hit lists, and a lot of these hits have been taken out against them. So we go back to the whole, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So, as the West is slowly going downwards in power, and Russia and especially China and the BRICS are rising, maybe it wasn't a good thing to create all those kill lists of people in Russia, because then that means that they can make kill lists for people like this, who make a lot of open threats towards them in the public. So I'm not saying anything, but I don't think that that's a very good long-term strategy to make blanket threats. Does the president of Estonia have the right to criticize Russia? Sure. Should that be his main mission in life? Maybe not, but does he have the right to say that Estonia is on the side of the Kiev regime? He certainly has the right to. I don't think they explain it very logically, but yeah, I mean, if that's the way they see things, and the overwhelming majority in Estonia sees the world through that lens, what can I say? It's a shame you do, but hey, that's how you see things. So yeah, he certainly has the right to do that. Now, when you get into the sort of free speech zone, well, when you use your free speech to make threats towards people, or say, I want you to be subdued and destroyed, and I think we need to punish your average citizens in your country, well, that's the kind of free speech where, your free speech ends at where my nose starts. And I think that those kind of threats are definitely not things that are socially acceptable. I mean, if someone was to go on Twitter, and I don't know, maybe towards celebrities you could get away with it because they're abstract. But if someone was like, hey, I'm trying to think of a celebrity. Man, I'm really out of touch. Okay, Taylor Swift. Guess what? Some weird guy goes on, he's like, Taylor Swift, I know your address. And if you don't do X, Y, and Z, I'm going to go to your house at this address, and I'm going to shoot you with this gun that I have right here. Or I'll at least kill your dog. Something awful like that, right? Well, that person would be arrested, they'd be put on trial, and they'd probably have to go to jail or some sort of psychiatric rehabilitation or something, right? That's kind of how the president of Estonia is behaving. Like, you want to keep those threats to a minimum. But anyways, the point I make is that in this stupid Taylor Swift example that I made, Taylor Swift would kind of have to react to that. Someone sort of saying that they want to destroy her, subdue her, and possibly hurt the people around her. She's going to have to do something about it. And that's why I don't understand this kind of language. The president of Estonia could do a much better job of doing the obligatory pro-Western butt kissing, but without the violence. What's with the threats? You could just say, again, this thing of we have our concept of democracy, and the Russians they just don't understand it. They're barbaric war. They're bad. You could just say they're bad in 50 different ways. That would be fine. 500 different ways of saying, no, the Russians are bad, they shouldn't be doing this, you don't understand Zelensky. Actually, I think that the Kiev side of things is much more democratic. Why are you being so barbarous? Blah, 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 blah. Without making any threats, he could go on and condemn all day long and everyone would be fine. But nope, he has to make threats. So all I can say is, for especially the leaders of the Baltic nations, let's just hope for you that NATO revitalizes itself and that there are no major economic problems in the United States, because if there are, there might be some consequences for you. Anyways, Tim Kirby Russia here, signing out.